Welcome to the Horse Hour podcast. We are at the National Equine Forum today and I'm with the lovely Caroline Benoist. Caroline, you are the Manager of Research and Education at the Academy of Schule?
Neue Schule.
Neue Schule.
Neue Schule.
I knew there was a nice way of saying it.
There is.
So you're speaking today.
I am, yes. Very excited.
Just before we talk about what you're going to be speaking on, where are you based?
Stokesley, North Yorkshire.
But you don't have a North Yorkshire accent.
I don't have an American accent, a French name, and Dutch nationality.
Oh, really?
English mother. Just to confuse things.
Oh my goodness, so when did you come over here and decide that you wanted to work in research on bits?
Actually, on my birthday, November of 2015. So I've been here a little over a year now.
Gosh, and what does your role entail?
Well, I manage the Academy by Neue Schule. So it's a series of online courses about how bits work. So it's basically the science behind the action of bits, lots of physics, and then I manage the research as well. So it's,
That's clever. So what do you have to do when you're looking at research?
Well, I've measured the pole pressure in every single bit that we have to see how much of the rainforest is actually going to the pole. So we've measured every single cheek type that we have, and so we've put out a pole pressure guide.
That's really clever because we do think about the pole, but the main thing we look at is the bit.
Exactly.
And the bit tends to be used as a stopping device,
yes,
or a how much control can I have device,
yeah.
Rather than I kind of think, and I don't know, okay, so that's why I'm asking you, but in my simple brain, I'm thinking, well, maybe we need to work more with the bits rather than sometimes I feel I'm working against it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I think it's just a lack of understanding in how they truly work. And unless you have the information that you need to know how a particular mouthpiece and cheekpiece work, then you can't really make a decision on your horse's way of going.
No, well, it's like going to Boots and deciding what shampoo and conditioner you want.
Well,
there are so many different types, and you're thinking, well, do I want one for volume hair or do I want one for shiny hair? I don't know. That for me is what it's like looking at bits, because
exactly.
I know that the snaffle doesn't hurt so much, and a pelham he probably doesn't need a pelham. That's about as far as my bitting knowledge goes.
Right.
So I then need to come to you and say, does it change based on your discipline?
It should, absolutely, yeah. And I think in some cases it's required. Obviously with dressage, we need to eventually move into double bridles. We do prefer.
Why? Why do we need to move to double bridles?
I think that's a question for the FEI.
Oh, really? Does it make a difference? Does it put more pressure?
It does. It can put more pressure, absolutely, and that's something I will actually address in my talk in regards to double bridles, which is in fact another study I recently completed. So we're just looking at the data now, so definitely be looking out for some more information on double bridles. But it's definitely, you've got the two bits, each has their own function, and the curb bit is really there to kind of reinforce the horse to kind of sit back on the hocks and perform those higher movements, which we see people do all the time, even without a bit. So it just begs the question:
do we need it?
Do we need it? Do we have to move to doubles? Because some horses are perfectly happy doing the movements in snaffles.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
A lot of this that we do is psychological, really, isn't it?
Yes,
it's what we've done in history and what we've done traditionally.
Exactly.
I don't feel, I've never ridden in a double bridle because psychologically I don't feel like I'm at that level where I should be riding in a double bridle. Yeah. Ultimately, if it doesn't do anything, then do we need it?
Do we need it? I mean, in some cases, I think some horses do need it. At the moment, it is just an FEI rule, where you have to move into doubles when you reach a certain level. Whether if you're an amateur rider, I don't think it's needed at all. I think you can just get away with whatever you're happy with, whatever your horse is happy with. But just a key word you said just a minute ago is tradition. And that is it. Bits and bitting, it's based on tradition.
Yeah.
And there's just hasn't been a lot of new knowledge out there, so there's lots of misconceptions. People believe in the nutcracker effect still, where a single jointed snaffle would be pushing into the horse's palate, which is simply not the case. It squeezes the tongue, that's for sure. But we think about the bit sitting upright. So you would actually have to have your hands at your heels to be able to push it up into the palate.
Oh, okay.
So,
but why would you want a bit that would squeeze your horse's tongue?
Well, maybe that's a design flaw.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. It's if you were to go with a straight bar, that wouldn't be the case. The horse's tongue wouldn't be speed. But these are things that people just don't know because it hasn't been looked at.
No.
And so that's something just the Academy is trying to get out there. It's how do these bits work?
Yeah.
We're not telling you. Because your horse has this way of going, this is the kind of bit that you need to use. We just look at the science of bits, and we don't look at just our bits. We look at every single bit that is out there. We look based on cheek type, based on mouthpiece. We look at what presses into the horse's tongue. We look at what pushes into the palate. We dispel some myths. You'll see some in a moment in the talk.
Oh, that's great. Well, for our listeners who sadly can't be here today because it's not a public forum, can you give us a little bit of what you're going to be talking about?
Absolutely. I will start off, with some welfare concerns in regards to the bit, but then I'm going to address one of the major misconceptions out there, which is the French link versus the Dr. Bristol, where the Dr. Bristol is said to be a not so mild bit. And the French link is said to be very mild. And you can go on so many forums and see people go back and forth and say the Dr. Bristol has the thin edge of its plate pushing into the horse's tongue. And it's simply not true. It is actually the reverse. It is the thin edge of the French link that's pushing into the horse's tongue, because that plate of the Dr. Bristol is angled. So if you look at it, the French link is straight across. The Dr. Bristol plate will be angled. But what most people don't know is that the bit, when it comes under rein tension, it rotates in the mouth.
Oh.
So when the Dr. Bristol rotates, it's the broad edge of that link that actually sits flat on the tongue.
Wow.
So, quite reversed.
It is. So what would you say is the most gentle bit out of all of them?
Ooh. Well, I think the most gentle bit, it depends on your horse. The most gentle bit is going to be the one that fits your horse's mouth. And they all have their individual anatomy. Some horses just have massive tongues. So you want a thinner bit, but a thinner bit is going to, put more localized pressure, high pressure, versus the thicker bit. So, but then, if your horse has a thick tongue, he's not going to want a thick bit. So what we really need to look for is we need to understand a horse's mouth. How deep is that palate, the roof of the horse's mouth, how much can it accommodate? If you put in a ported bit, if you have a shallow palate, that port is going to make contact. So it really, you have to look at your own horse to determine what is kindest. And then there's the debate on pole pressure. Well, when we look, even with the double bridle, the pole pressure is not what people think it is. It's just to the order of a few hundred grams, a few slices of cheese on your horse's pole.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Oh, well, that makes me feel better, because I thought I was putting far too much pressure on his head.
You'd be surprised, because the levered bits, they need something, it's kind of like a seesaw, so they need a fulcrum to push against to provide that leverage. Well, the lips stretch, so we call it a floating fulcrum. In fact, Frank Swales, the inventor of Swales bit, came up with that term. You can find it in his patent. So it doesn't put that much pole pressure, but you have to think about where the rein forces are being distributed. So a little bit is going to the pole. The rest will be going to the tongue, the corners of the lips. But in the case of these levered bits, because you have a curb chain, what we found is that after 1 kilogram of rein tension, the curb chain actually takes over. It prevents any further rotation, so you are going to be putting pressure into the horse's chin groove. So we always have to think about the nerves, the blood vessels, but we also tend to tie the horse's mouth shut, don't we? Crank nose bands, flash nose straps. We tie them shut, we compress their tongue, we push things up into their palate. So, I think you really, really just need to know your horse's mouth anatomy, and then you can make a choice. And it's what works for your horse. So,
Carolyn, thank you so much. It's fascinating.
So
Gosh, we are in a very beautiful room, aren't we? And there's tea and coffee. So if you heard some water being poured, then there's a lovely gentleman having some lunch in the corner. He's having a little break in this beautiful place in London.
It is gorgeous.
And hasn't it been an amazing morning so far?
It has been an absolutely amazing morning. I've loved the talk so far. Some great information out there.
And an interesting debate, an interesting panel discussion on Brexit and the impact of Brexit. And Rolio has chaired that beautifully. And I think it's interesting to hear businesses perception and what they're going through. I mean, what you guys are going through, cutting through with your education, is the way forward, definitely.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, the Brexit talk really hit home for me, because as you know, I'm a EU citizen and brought my horse over from the States by way of Belgium, and so, he didn't get microchipped until Belgium, and he has a Belgian passport. And
really?
So, yeah.
Why didn't he get microchipped?
They don't do that in the States. And then it varies by state what identification is needed. So it's
oh my gosh. So actually, like a worldwide system for microchipping would be phenomenal, wouldn't
exactly.
it?
Yeah, because then you can really track the movement of horses, because it was scary taking him out of the States. I'd moved him within the States, moved him across the country, but then he was picked up in the middle of the night when I was already in Belgium, quarantined in New York, and then came to Belgium and just wasn't even microchipped.
Do you feel safer knowing that he's microchipped now?
I do, in a way, yes. It did leave some scar tissue in him, so I do kind of think about that and wonder. If he were to be stolen, it is a piece of identity. He's not tattooed or anything, but
it's better to be safe than sorry. And it's always,
I agree.
But if the more that we can track our horses, and the more horses we know are out there, then we know the ones that need help. We can help them more.
Exactly.
Just kind of brings everybody together a little bit. Well, it's been fascinating. I wish you all the best of luck.
Oh,
You're on at 2:00.
Yes.
And you'll be great.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Thanks so much for listening. I'm at the National Equine Forum all day today, and I'll be bringing you interviews with guest speakers, with some of the experts. We'll be live tweeting the conversations that are taking place and photos too, so you can get involved in what's happening at the NEF. Tweet us your questions. What do you think about some of the subjects that are being talked about? Just use #HorseHour, #NEF17. The experts here are talking in detail about how we can make changes to the industry. How can we improve our equestrian industry? And you're part of that as well. So do tweet us your opinions and your questions. I will speak to you very soon.